snippet. If I gave my testimony, I'd probably be up for 3 hours, so I'm just going to give you a snippet of one of the gracious things of God or He did in my life. And that was in 1973, the summer of 1973, I was invited to a church. Now, I had gone to church all my life, but it was the church that I went to, I never saw any evidence of God. I didn't really learn a lot about God in that church. It was very ritualistic, and so by the time I got to the end of where I had to go to church, and then it was my decision, I had decided it wasn't something for me. I didn't believe in God. They say there is no such thing as an atheist, but I probably came as close as anyone could come. And but like I said, in 1973, I had a boss who kept asking me to go to church, and I just kind of, yeah, maybe one of these days, and I'm not really intending to. But one Sunday morning, I woke up, and the church was only about a block and a half away. It wasn't that far. I could walk right over there. So one Sunday morning, I woke up with this idea in my head, and it was, Brian, you dummy. If you go to church and he sees you there, you may be able to get a raise out of it. and you can always use a little more money. So, well, now that makes sense. Now it makes sense. So I got myself all ready, and I hiked over there, and I got there. When I wasn't sure when the church started, so I got there a little early. But I walked in there, and right away I noticed a difference, because the people came up and they started shaking my hand and talking to me and saying hi and greet me. In the church that I went to, you just kind of, everybody, they gave a little head nod or something, and once you got in there, you're just totally quiet. Nobody, it was a different. But these people were different. I mean, and not only did the ones that were already there, but people come in and they'd come over to where I'm sitting. I'm kind of sitting in the back hiding. And they come over and introduce themselves and shake my hand. Boy, these are some friendly people. I've never been in a church like this. So anyway, I'm going to make it short because I saw some. First, they started with this singing, and the songs were just amazing songs. I never heard Christian songs. I didn't know they had Christian songs that they wrote after the 1500s. I didn't realize. But there were, and they were singing these kind of songs, and they were all about the Lord, and they're all in their hands up and praising God. And this is really different, Well, some miraculous things happened during that service, and I was just amazed at the whole thing. At the end of the service, something happened. They gave an invitation. Now, I had never heard of being born again. I had never heard of an altar call. I had never heard of asking Jesus into your life. I had gone to church my whole life and never heard of any of that. So, all of a sudden, from the tips of my fingers to the tips of my toes, from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet, this electricity just hit me. And it just started buzzing. I mean, it's just soaring through me, back and forth and back. And all of a sudden, this light went on. And for the first time, I believed in God. And I knew that He existed. And I was so amazed. I was the first one to that altar. And I gave my life to the Lord that day. And I mean, I was absolutely, and I'm going, it was this thing. I don't know if you ever saw that commercial where Santa Claus meets the M&M, and they go, "You really are real," and they pass out over there. It's like, you really are real, God. So I was so excited, and I can remember walking home and singing these songs. He is Lord, and Jesus, or something about that. And I'm singing these songs that I just learned, and it felt, I can see myself. I know I wasn't literally doing that because it probably would have been in the paper, but I could see myself about that far off the ground. I mean, I was up about that far off the ground. Now, this was exciting. Now, sadly, a few weeks later, we moved away. We moved out in Wyoming, a little Mormon town out in Wyoming. So I had no foundation. I had no one to mentor me. And when we got there, there wasn't a church like this in that town. So I kind of just, I spent some time trying to, keep this, but there was also something else that was not good for me, and that was, this was the most beautiful place. It had the best hunting and fishing and hiking and camping and Arrowhead. I mean, there was so much stuff to do that I became very selfish, and I started doing what I wanted to do, and I'm hunting, fishing, and I just completely, and I'm also working 12 hours a day and whatever, but I took all the time that I should have been learning about God, I took it and I used it for myself. So what happened was, over about a 5-year period, I had kind of gotten away from God. I mean, from this experience. The only experience I had, the only testimony I had was when I was working construction or whatever. I'd tell these Mormon guys that start telling about the Mormon church. Well, I tell them, one day I walked into a church and the Spirit of God came on me, and this is, and I tell them, and that's all the only testimony I really had. So, but anyway, I found myself in Florida one day, and at this point, I was actually even kind of bitter, because now I wanted to get back to God. I had a reason to want to really get back to God. I really needed Him bad. There was something in my life, and I needed Him so bad. And I wanted to get back, but I wasn't feeling anything. I was feeling just as dead or deader than I did when I walked into that church that day. But I started going to a little church, and one day I went to help work on the church, and I got the pastor off the side, and I told him, I says, I don't feel like anything, like I feel anything anymore. I don't feel saved. I don't feel, I think God gave up on me. I must have just pushed it over the line, and He just gave up on me, and He tried to explain to me that He doesn't do that. He doesn't leave us. He doesn't forsake us, and well, that next week, they were going to have a revival. Now, I sat in the back of the church, and I'm really kind of upset, because all these people are going up there and they're testifying of all these miraculous things that God had done. One was healed of cancer in a big tumor in the head. One lady was told 3 times before she finally said, okay, God, I want to not go to work that day. And the gal who sat in her desk at work was killed because it had such a rainstorm that the roof caved in, and that gal who was in her desk, because she didn't go, she finally listened to God and didn't go, and that gal was killed. Another guy who had all kinds of cancer, and it was another gal who could not have a baby, but she got the testimony on the 700 Club that someone out there you've been trying for years, they tell you can't have a baby, you are pregnant, and you're so many months pregnant. Well, she went immediately to the doctor, and she claimed it, and she went to the doctor and said, I'm pregnant, I want a test, and he said, well, you can't get pregnant, but, and so he went along with it, and she found out she was, not only was she pregnant, but exactly the time that they had proclaimed. Okay, now I'm sitting back there, and I'm going, and I'm miserable. And the pastor's leaning up against the wall over there, and I'm in the back, and that's the front. And he's leaning up against the wall, and he looks back at me, and there's a gal up there testifying about the brain tumor that disappeared out of her head, that was the size of a ball. And he looks at me, and he goes, and I looked around, see who he's doing that to, and he goes, and I go, no. And so finally, because he wasn't going to quit, so I went over there, and he said, I want you to, when she's done, I want you to go up there and tell him what's happening, and how you feel, and I didn't want to do this. I wasn't feeling in any mood to do that. But as he's talking to me, this gal finishes. She comes over and she puts the mic in my hand. He didn't tell her to. She just put it in my hand. And then he's going, go ahead and tell him. Go ahead and tell him. And I'm like, I don't know. And then that pastor did something pastors aren't supposed to do. He shoved me right out. He shoved me out there, And I went, so that I'm already, the momentum's going. So I just headed on out there. And I got up there, And I started saying, well, you know, I just don't feel anything from God anymore. I think he gave up on me, you know. I just don't know what to do. And I look back at the pastor, and I'm going, I don't know what to say. And he goes, well, just tell him the devil's a liar. And I thought, boy, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. And I went, well, I think that, and I stopped, and I went, no, the devil's a liar. All of a sudden, from the tips of my fingers to the tips of my toes, from the top of my head to the sole of my, this electricity, and I jumped off of the podium, and I'm going to, because it was a split aisle right down the middle, and I'm going down the aisle, and I don't even know why, but I mean, it came over me, and I mean, I was on fire, and I'm shaking people's hands, the devil's a liar, the devil's a liar, and I'm going, and I mean, the Spirit of God is just all over me. Well, as soon as that night was over, I had to go to work. I had to run right to work. So I ran off to work, and I worked in a prison, and I'm praying, because now I'm really praying to God again. And I'm praying, Lord, put me on the outside, because I can't contain this on the inside. Put me on the perimeter. And when I got there, they assigned me to the perimeter. So I'm out there with my shotgun and my pistol on my side, and there's a street light right there. I got one corner of the perimeter of the prison, and I'm singing these songs again. He is Lord, and whatever, and I'm kind of marching back and forth past this light. Yeah. And I looked up, and as I have no idea why I did this. I'm going back and forth, and there was this bird that kept flying in, and then he'd disappear into the darkness, because this is at 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock, somewhere in there. And he'd show up into the light, and he'd disappear. You know, I think he was coming after bugs or something. But I'm singing, He is Lord, He is Lord. And I don't know why, but for some reason, he come in just as I got to that line. I went, He is Lord. And that bird stopped in midair and then just fluttered straight down and landed right in front of me. And I'm just looking, and I mean, you know, at first I thought maybe he hit the telephone pole or something, or the light pole. But no, I saw him stop right there, and he fluttered straight down. And I reached down there, and I picked him up. And then I heard God's voice for the very first time in my life. And he said, I know when any bird falls to the earth, and I care for every one of them, how much more I love and care for you. And I just start crying. And I'm just weeping and praising God. And the bird, he's just like, I mean, he's in shock. He's just, and I didn't hold him like this. Like he's just sitting there. And I'm just crying. And I mean, and the bird's just, you know, like what's going on? And I mean, I don't know how long I did that. I don't know how long. But when I got done, all I did was go like this, and that bird took off. He never came back. For some reason, he didn't come back. But that was the first of many times that I heard the Lord. And why he dealt with me like that, I don't know. Maybe because he knew I was a little slower than most, you know, and he had to really hit me hard. But it was the big change. It was the thing that kept me strong, and since then it's just been one step from after another, and just a miracle after another, and I've seen amazing things. God is an amazing God. Amen. And he never ceases. He never changes. Amen. You know, he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Right now, right here, he is the same. Amen. So, praise God.
Anyone else would like to? Mary, come right up.
This will be short. I wasn't going to do this. In Skip's class, he wanted us to write testimonies, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. I had no intention of doing that. I was sitting at my desk, and God had different ideas, and I turned around to the computer and started writing. So, this is what I wrote. I'm not sure I know about all this testimony stuff, but here goes. A lot has happened in my life, some good, some bad, but that is not what's important. What is important is that I have been forgiven of my sins, and I am now living my life for Christ. I feel His love and His joy all the time, and I am so thankful for it. To me, my spiritual journey started at Golden Harvest Calvary Church. I have attended churches off and on my whole life. I have accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior and been baptized multiple times, but it never stuck. It never felt right until I started at this church. In 2015, a friend of ours asked us to come to church with her at Calvary Church, and we did. The singing was good and the preacher was great, and I could feel the love and feel Jesus' spirit there. The way the preacher preached straight out of the Bible and used it in everyday life situations was just what I was looking for. We had been attending a different church, and we were going to switch off every other Sunday, but we never went back to that other church. We started coming on Sunday mornings, and then Sunday evenings, then Wednesday evenings, and then to Saturday service. Now there is no place on earth that I would rather be than worshiping with God's people. The good Lord told me that I needed to be baptized again and rededicate my life to Christ. This was the first time that I was aware of God talking to me. He has spoken to me many times since then, and I've tried my best to do what I believe He is telling me to. And if I don't the first time, He tells me over and over until I do respond in the manner that He wants. I was a little scared to tell Pastor that I needed to be baptized again. He put my mind at ease, and the next Sunday we got it done. I have heard a lot about gifts of the Spirit, and I believe that God has shown me that my gift is a gift of service. God has given me the privilege and honor to help other people. He has also brought me out of my shell and made me comfortable interacting with others. I am still not good with strangers, but He is working on me all the time. I feel so much closer to God now. Of course, I am a work in progress and always will be. I thank God that He is patient with me and continues to teach me, lead me, and help me. I spend time with God every day and try to remember that He is with me at all times. He is so very, very good to me. I can't even express to you how happy I am that He brought me back into His flock.
Anyone else? Okay, we got a couple. How about we take about a 2 or 3 minute break, get a drink of water, and we'll come back. We'll That's the Cowboy Church shofar right there. Thank you, Roy. Judy just, while we were on a little break, Judy just shared a little testimony with me. I thought I was the only one that did that. She was sitting at a light, and she thought she'd been there long enough, so she just went ahead and went. It was still there. I knew that. I thought it was only me. I think Danny was going to share a testimony with us next, so Danny, if you come.
Well, praise God. I hadn't really planned to do this, but this morning I took myself out to breakfast. And Sharon had some things going, and I had some things happening. Anyway, I found myself in Denny's by myself. And for whatever reason, it seemed to take quite a length of time for the waitress to get my food and so forth. So I was just sitting there thinking, and God reminded me of some things. And so, in being obedient to what I think God would have me to do tonight. In 70 years, there's been a lot of blessings and a lot of testimonies come my way. And I know you don't think I'm that old, but anyway, 70 plus years, there's been so many testimonies, but this one in particular. And it was several years ago now, just shortly after I retired from my real job. And some of you know that Sharon and I have been involved in the MAPS RV volunteers for several years now, and our job is to go around and build churches and volunteer our time. And so we've been doing that now for about 13 years. But just shortly after we signed on to this ministry,